Every Space Marine chapter has a chapter master. That one individual, the pinnacle of the chapter that all within should aspire to, the leader of the chapter, and basically the coolest guy to bear the chapter's name. My Homebrew successor chapter, the Screaming Ravens, does not have a chapter master. I mean, look at this list. Look at all of these chapters that I've never heard of, and all of these chapter masters. The Screaming Ravens should definitely have one. So in this video, I'm going to explore creating my own chapter master for the Screaming Ravens. Not only will I think about the lore, but not content with already making absurd and overpowered rules for the detachment, I want to now ruin the game further by coming up with some cool rules for a model that would represent my chapter master. A good place to start with these kind of things is looking at what already exists, and fortunately for me, the Space Marine Codex has many examples of chapter masters we can look at, and we can gauge what kind of power level they have and how their cool rules interact with who they are. For example, a character that I use in my quote-unquote tournament list is Kayvaan Shrike, a fairly expensive model for a single character, which is toughness 4, 5 wounds, 3 up, 4 up, at 100 points. But it really sells that Shadow Master by being unable to be targeted outside 12 inches for the entire unit and being able to jump away if there's no one in engagement range. This is such a good unit. It's so fun to be able to rapid ingress something over 12 inches away, get 12 inches of movement for a basically unfailable charge, get in, rip something to shreds, and then get out. It's very, very cool, very, very Raven Guard. Now let's have a look at another chapter master, the Imperial Fists, Tor Garadon. Very interesting weapons. A strength 12 weapon is really, really cool. It gives ignore cover, which is okay, I suppose, and then each time it attacks a monster, vehicle, or fortification, you improve the strength, armor penetration, and damage by 2. This is a strength 14, AP -4, 4 damage melee weapon, and he leads Gravis as well, so he's really tanky. And oh, sorry, hang on. Tor Garadon's not the chapter master? Oh, he's just a captain. Huh, I would have sworn that he was a chapter master. Sorry, yeah, I'm not big into the lore, but he seemed pretty cool. It must be Darnath Lysander. Oh, this makes a lot more sense. Fist of Dawn. Dawn's like their guy, right? Devastating wounds, strength 10, damage 3. He leads Terminators instead, but he gets that Terminator defense buff that a lot of Terminators get in other places, so it really kind of sells that steadfast, heavy, tanky ability. Not as unique as Kayvaan, but he also gets a 2-up invuln once per battle, which is really Darnath Lysander's not the chapter master either? Who's the chapter master of the Imperial Fists? Gregor Dessian? Okay, I mean this in the most respectful way. Who the fuck is Gregor Dessian? This is blowing my mind that there are 2 models for the Imperial Fists and neither of them the chapter master. I guess it makes sense why their abilities are kind of more generic than someone like Kayvaan Shrike, because they're just captains. That's fine, okay. But let's go find another chapter master that will actually be interesting, like Corsaro Khan. It was always weird that they never gave him a bike, because it seems like White Scar's all about bikes. But he has a very cool thing where he gives the unit he's leading both assault and lance, and 1 CP for killing characters, both very unique and very interesting. Corsaro Khan isn't the chapter master of the White Scars? Who's the chapter master of the White Scars then? Jubal Khan? At least there's some information about this guy somewhere. Okay, so he's just not able to fight because of some being in a battle thing. But that's okay. That's fine. But honestly, this is blowing my mind. I honestly thought that each chapter, like each main chapter, would have had a chapter master represented on the board. At least the White Scars have a kind of lore excuse. Who the fuck is Gregor? I can't remember his name. Gregor Dessian? I actually literally recorded this 2 minutes ago. I do not remember his name. There are so many epic heroes in this codex. How many of them are actually chapter masters? There are only 8, and 2 of them are successor chapters. And the Space Wolves Logun Grimnar gets 2 models, 2 different units, because he can be on a wolf or something. Wait, Crimson Fist's chapter master has a model with rules, but not the Imperial Fists. And Flesh Tearers get... There are 2 Salamanders units here. Wait. Neither Adrax Agatone or Vulcan Heaston are the chapter master of the Salamanders. Then who is the chapter master of the Salamanders? I feel like I'm going crazy. This is literally blowing my mind reading this. Tu Shan. More like who, Shan? I know I'm reading the wiki and I should look at a better source, but he's been recognized by other chapters of the Adeptus Astartes as a valiant and skilled master of his Astartes and is respected by nearly all. Then why isn't he a model on the board? He doesn't have a lore excuse like Jubal Khan. He's actually able to fight, I think. And Tushan has a lot of really cool stuff. Why isn't he being used? I legitimately went into this video going, oh, we'll have a look at some of the characters, see what they do, make our own character. And finding out how many of these characters are not the Chapter Master, and then finding out the Chapter Master is just these random people I've never heard of is crazy to me. Like, how many people actually knew this? And also, how many of you were making comments saying things like, oh, that guy isn't a Chapter Master, oh, you're wrong, before watching the whole video? Because I know you do it. And if you did it, you will have to go back and edit your comment to apologize for making assumptions. Don't delete your comment. Don't be a coward. I've seen that before as well. Okay, but apart from shattering my entire worldview of the lore of Space Marines, let's actually have a look at some of these characters. Most of them range somewhere between 70 and 100 points. A couple of outliers are Helbrecht and Commander Dante at 120. Then Manius Calgar is just a completely different standard. He's 185, but he comes with extra dudes, but he does a lot. Advanced fallback and charge, 1 CP, he's got his honor guard, he can get a 4-up, feel no pain. And Helbrecht gets crits on 5+, +1 strength in melee, and also mortal wounds in the fight phase. Both very strong, so definitely where the points are being spent. Some, like Pedro Cantor for the Crimson Fists, an actual chapter master, has once per battle +1 attacks to the weapons of the unit it's leading, as well as actually giving the unit it's leading +1 to hit and +1 to wound based on how damaged the opponent is, which is a really cool rule. The main thing it has done, which is really good for all of these characters, is it really does fit the flavor of the chapter. Even down to the weapons. Kayvaan Shrike has a really cool precision pistol and awesome lightning claws, which unfortunately no one else can get because for some reason they took away the goddamn lightning claws. Adrax Agatone and Vulcan Heaston both have really cool flamer weapons. We've already seen the Imperial Fist with their very, very strong, heavy hitting melee. So when creating something for the Screaming Ravens, I definitely want to tap into their thing, which is being fast and unpredictable. Now, as I like to do, I do like to make overly complicated and very silly things and then dial them back when I realize they don't work. And so I've actually made 3 different ideas for the Chapter Master rules-wise, which also kind of fit the lore and makes a lot of sense. But these are kind of with ramping intensity of the insanity of the idea. My first idea is very simple. A Centurion character. I love Centurions. I use them all the time. They are the backbone of my army and really the backbone of Screaming Ravens. Very loud, but very unpredictable using the detachment rule that I've made for their detachment. Unpredictable, unrelenting. A way that the captains kind of work for their respective troop is they essentially get a 4-up invuln and 3 extra wounds. So a jump pack captain has 5 wounds while a jump pack instance has 2 wounds. So I think it makes sense for my character for a Centurion to have 7 wounds rather than 4. Although some chapter masters do increase this slightly, I think going towards 8 or 9 wounds for a character is a bit much. So I think the standard +3 here makes sense, as well as the 4-up invuln. In terms of weapons, I kind of want this guy to be a melee-focused dude to go with the Assault Centurions. Even though I do use Devastator Centurions a lot, I feel like they don't need or really don't fit where the chapter master would be. He's going to be at the front. He's going to be doing the charge, doing the screaming. I also don't want to put a lot of the power budget into the weaponry, so I think that he's probably going to have standard Centurion bolters. It would be cool for his other weapon to be a choice weapon between the flamer or the melter. So like weapons like missiles where you can either choose a blast lower damage or a 1 attack higher damage version. His fist flamer melters could either be the flamer or the melter depending on which one you choose during the turn or depending on who you actually send him with. And having him lead a Assault Centurions would give him the sustained hits 2 in melee, which means I can't give the melee weapon too much power. I was thinking maybe just giving like a super awesome version where it's like D3 + 3 damage, but then that's really powerful if you get a lot of rolls, so I'm probably going to keep this relatively the same. For both the weapons in melee and range, give it a 2-up weapon skill or ballistic skill rather than it being standard. That's again very normal for captains. Now for rules, my first idea was essentially to lean into the detachment. You can only really take this guy if you're using the Screaming Raven detachment. If you use this unit and select it for the detachment rule, you get to pick rather than having to roll on the table. That means at least for one of your 3 picks for having the unpredictable, unrelenting, you have some consistency and you can choose a unit of your Centurions to be whatever you want them to be rather than relying on a roll. Now for the other rule, I'm not 100% sure on this one and it's actually quite difficult to come up with something that I feel is unique but not overpowered. The idea for a Screaming Ravens is they overwhelm you with all this noise and things going on, hit you really hard very quickly, and then disappear before you know what's going on. So a once per battle thing makes a lot of sense. And for a Centurion character, they're probably going to be quite expensive. 3 Centurions are 150, and you're usually getting a captain for the same price as a unit. So it's going to have to be at least 150 points for the character, if not more, because of all these buffs. So closer maybe to 200 points. My second idea, which is a bit more insane, but is essentially a double character. This one's a little less cooked, but essentially the idea is you have a Centurion character, but with only 4 wounds. So he's a standard Centurion model. When he dies, he deals mortal wounds and then becomes a jump pack character in strategic reserves. My understanding of Centurions is they're basically like a walking suit of battle armor. So it'd be really cool if the person inside that battle armor had their own rules as well, where you can like drop the Centurion armor, have it blow up, and then escape into the sky and then come back again doing something else. He would probably have to be some sort of lone operative rather than going with a squad, and get some rules based on that. But essentially he can drop in lone operative and then run into combat, do some damage, have the model or have the Centurion armor be destroyed, and then jump out of it, go back in the sky, come back in another direction as a jetpack character. I'd like to hear your ideas around this one, because this one I think is a kind of cool one, but also very difficult to implement. I was also thinking, to really overcomplicate matters, that when you drop the Centurion armor and you have to go into strategic reserves, the Centurion armor stays there, and you can actually get back into it and then regen those 4 wounds and start fighting again. Though that feels a little silly and doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you also want to destroy the Centurion armor to do damage. So maybe it's kind of a choice thing. I don't know. Now, the final idea is the most insane and probably the silliest one I can think of. One of the things with the Screaming Ravens is that unpredictability, and also not really knowing who's who, what's going on. All of the armor is different, so there's no markings that really show who anyone is. How about the Screaming Raven Chapter Master is anyone? This model joins a unit, any unit. It mimics the stats and the weapons of that unit, but gets +3 wounds, a 4-up invuln, and improves the weapon skill and ballistic skills of the weapons by 1. And then from there, that unit gets loads of the Screaming Raven buffs. Like, it could have an extra free roll for the detachment rule, and then depending on that roll, gets a really good buff depending on which one you get. That really, really goes into that unpredictable, unrelenting idea where both you and your opponent aren't 100% sure of the tactics that's going to be happening. And it really leans into the idea that the Screaming Ravens Chapter Master is unknown. And the benefit with that one is that you can really customize a model that you want to fit around each of your units if you want to. One thing I really, really like about homebrewing this kind of stuff is how creative you can get. It's a lot of fun to really deep dive into your thoughts and how you would actually create something within the realms of 40k that both sounds cool, makes some sense, but also has a unique twist on it. I know I'm fairly guilty of making those unique twists far too unique, but again, this is just theory crafting on a YouTube video rather than actually trying to play anything. Yet 40k in Space Marine chapters has such a wide variety of completely different ideas. It's such a great way to explore your creativity, and that's both on the tabletop, on the way you paint them, on creating homebrew rules, or creating your own lore. It's such a fun thing to explore, and I really, really encourage you to do so. And even just taking your wins and losses from the tabletop and trying to implement them into your ideas is a lot of fun as well. And that's one of the reasons that I really like 40k, is all of this stuff intertwines. So whilst I don't know too much about some of the parts, like the lore, because apparently I didn't know half of the fucking Chapter Masters, it's still really fun to try and implement all these things together, especially with a brain like mine who loves to theory craft and homebrew things. And I also love hearing what you guys come up with, because you're just as creative, if not more creative than I am. In fact, you probably are more creative than I am, because I'm kind of dumb. So leave your ideas in the comments or on the Discord. And once again, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this, go like and subscribe, all the usual stuff, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.